you were awarded police officer of the year by your coworkers, right?
That, yes, sir. I was my first year. I was as a solo police officer with the Pacific Grove Police Department. I was awarded Officer of the Year um, in 2017. I was also awarded the Life Saving Award. For essentially saving two kayakers who were African American.
All right, I am here with former Officer Michael Gonzalez from the Pacific Grove Police Department in California. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, Michael. Well, I appreciate you joining me today on my show. I've been through a similar experience, as you well know. You've been following me, which I do appreciate. Um, but it's definitely not a fun time what you and I have been through. So just kind of give us a little introduction and tell us what you've been through so far with the Pacific Grove Police Department.
Well, thanks for having me on your show,
You bet.
Officer Nate. And yeah, it's been a headache. It's been a true life changer, not just for myself, but for my family, for my three boys. Who truly looked up to me as a police officer, and to have that ripped from you just because of a political view is very, very hard.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, it really started off with a councilwoman who became offended over decals I had on my personal vehicle. Decals such as I had a Trump decal, thin blue line decal, the Punisher symbol,
Mhm.
which in Latin, terms it said come and take it," which
Right.
every Second Amendment advocate knows, that what that stands for. Had a California 3%er decal on my truck. I have a lot of friends and organizations and stuff, that represent that. But, those guys are, withholding and upstanding our Constitution and, our Second Amendment rights. Also had a decal, Liberty Guns Beer Trump, you know,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
things that I like, right? I like my liberty.
Sure.
I like my beer, I like Trump, and I like my guns.
And
For
the
this count,
LGBTQ community took offense to that. Is that right?
exactly. She made the assumption that I was mocking the LGBT community, but you know, so I don't have the right to make any acronyms that I may want.
Right. Yeah. The LGBTQ community doesn't have exclusive rights over those particular letters.
That's correct.
Yeah. And this Councilwoman McAdams, is that correct?
That's
Is it
correct.
McAdams? Okay. Now from what I understand, is she's the one who initially filed a complaint, or at least brought it to the attention of your department that you had these decals and bumper stickers on your truck, and she didn't appreciate it, and she took offense to it.
That's correct.
Okay. Um, Now, just to clarify, so the Punisher symbol, right? Now, I've seen that Punisher symbol sported by tons of police officers. Now, the Punisher symbol, if anybody is familiar with the Punisher character in the comics, in the movies, people would think, I guess, people who are in opposition of police officers would misconstrue that decal to mean that police officers are barbarians running the street and they're out there trying to punish people and they're playing judge, jury, and executioner. And that's just not the case. The Punisher, from the comics, at least from what I understand, represents justice, right? He's out for justice. He's not out for revenge. Part of his backstory he was, but police officers don't wear or display the Punisher symbol because they're out there trying to shoot first and ask questions later. It's because police officers are out there fighting for justice, and that's why they wear the Punisher symbol or put it on their truck, or maybe they have some sort of sticker or something that they put on their vest underneath their uniform. I worked with a guy from the Twin Falls Police Department. He actually painted the Punisher symbol on his ballistic vest. It wasn't visible to the public, but to him it meant something. It was a reminder to him of just what exactly he's fighting for. Right. So, for those of you who are watching and listening, if you think that police officers who put the Punisher symbol on any part of their body, or if they get a tattoo, or if they put it on a sticker in their window, that it means that they're just a bunch of thugs who are out punishing people when that's not part of their job description, that's inaccurate. Okay. Now, Michael, I imagine you were probably in the same boat. You probably sported that particular logo because you believe in justice and you believe that that's what you were fighting for as a police officer. No?
Yeah, absolutely right. They're not just that, but it actually has a second meaning to me. So I actually have the Punisher symbol tattooed here. I got this tattoo when I was 18 years old.
Okay.
So the reason why I got that tattoo was that, it was mine and my dad's favorite Marvel comic character. And when my dad passed away, this was my way of showing, that bond that we had to a certain, comic, just a Marvel comic character.
Yeah.
But yet, this councilwoman basically made her observation of to what it was, and just ran with it just because she was offended, that I had to take her point of view on what she meant, what she believed it meant, and to
Yeah.
her it was wrong. But yet, without really knowing any really the backstory of why I present the Punisher symbol, it's disgusting. It's totally disgusting at how, officers, not just officers anymore, but just everyone in general who has a conservative view can't have their own opinions anymore about a simple thing as a Marvel character. Look at what
Yeah.
happened to, um, the Aunt Jemima stuff. It's disgusting, man.
Hmm. Yeah. Now, did Councilwoman McAdams ever approach you person to person to tell you or to express her concerns to you about any of this stuff?
Absolutely not.
So she just went
Absolutely,
behind your back to your department and to your chief to complain about you?
absolutely, yeah, exactly. And the thing that too is that these decals and stuff that I had in my truck were on my personal vehicle for about almost a whole year.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, the George Floyd incident happens, and everyone, you know, wakes up in this fake wokeness and wants to be offended by everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the problem. And the problem I see too is I know that so I did a little bit of research into Council McAdams' Facebook page, and I went back, oh, I don't know, at least a year or so, and I saw a Facebook post of hers where she was essentially shaming a group of people who were flying the thin blue line flag. Right?
Yep.
They were just out on the street somewhere, out on a sidewalk, and flying the thin blue line flag. And I can't remember exactly what they were demonstrating for, or if they were protesting something. But she posted a couple of photos on her Facebook page of these people, and with a very stern reminder, because they weren't wearing masks, with a very stern reminder that they should be wearing masks, they should be social distancing because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and they're helping to by standing out there with their thin blue line flags facilitate the spread of COVID, right? So she doesn't have a problem using her social media platform
Yep.
to express her political opinions, especially when it's to sort of shame or try to guilt people who don't share the same political perspective that she does. But when someone else posts a decal on their personal vehicle that she doesn't agree with, right? That doesn't align with her political beliefs, then she uses her influence as a city councilwoman to try and discredit and damage the reputation of a police officer who, from what I understand, from you were awarded police officer of the year by your coworkers, right?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. I was my first year. I was as a solo police officer with the Pacific Grove Police Department. I was awarded Officer of the Year um, in 2017. I was also awarded the Life Saving Award. For essentially saving two kayakers who were African American. Officer Nate, as an officer, you honestly do not see a color. You see someone in dire need, and you just jump to action. If I was this so-called racist that this city and this councilwoman, claims me to be, I would have just not. I would have just left those two kayakers in the water. But
Right.
absolutely not. That's not what I do. That's not what's in my heart. And I've advocated for all lives matter.
Hmm.
Since forever, since day one. You know, um,
Now you posted a couple of things to your Parlor account, which I find funny because Parler was sort of created as a response to the sort of the wokeness and the radical leftism of Twitter, right? And the censorship that that conservatives like you and I experience on the mainstream social media platforms. But then you have people who normally wouldn't associate themselves with Parler or create an account, except to troll the accounts of conservative people so that they can look for things to be offended about and then report them back to your chief or your mayor or your immediate supervisor, which I'm assuming is what happened in this case. What was the name of the organization that created that flyer about you and essentially went digging through your social media history?
So yeah, it was just a meme that I found off Facebook. I think it was made at Conservative Federation, I believe it's called. It's just a lot of conservative memes that this page makes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, essentially, it's crazy. Like you said, it's a witch hunt. I was followed. So that I was on off leave of work. Just based on my decals for 3 months. 3 months off of work just over decals that somebody said that represented white supremacy, anti-militia, anti-LGBTQ, but without any real explanation as to coming to me and saying, what do these mean? Or, I've had these on my truck for, like I said, almost a whole year.
Yeah.
And I was placed on leave over one person saying, let me Google search. Let me look up the Southern Poverty Law Center. Let me look up the Anti-Defamation League, and let me basically copy and post what these independent, very far left resources say.
Yeah.
I was followed. They took pictures of me, myself, my vehicle while I was at Costco, buying food for my kids. These people were headhunting me just over these false allegations that were being put out.
Which, I find ironic and comical and hypocritical all at the same time. As well as I do that police officers are held to a much higher standard than most people in society, right? As you found out, we're not allowed to speak our minds. We're not allowed to share our opinions, even when we're off duty, posting to our personal social media accounts for fear that those posts might offend someone, and those concerns and those complaints be reported back to our chiefs and our supervisors. But people are allowed to harass you, follow you, stalk you, and probably, I'm sure you've probably gotten a lot of hate on social media as well. Thanks probably in part to the city councilwoman who posted several things to social media in regards to you and the investigative and disciplinary process that you went through as a result of, in part, her complaint about you. So all of that stuff is okay, right? You're allowed to stalk and harass and intimidate and threaten a police officer, and you have no recourse. But when you post an opinion that's not directed at any one person in particular, but let's talk. I mean, for instance, your Black Lives Matter post, right? That wasn't targeting any one person in particular. That was targeting the organization
Absolutely.
Black Lives Matter, right? Which, as anybody who's got half a brain and a modicum of common sense knows, that BLM is a fraudulent Marxist organization trying to destroy American institutions out by its roots, and the people who value America and hold American values near and dear to their heart, because they know that America is a great country, and the only reason we have the freedom to do most of the things that we do, is because of our Constitution and the people who uphold the Constitution. And those values and our rights are being threatened on a daily basis by organizations like BLM. So why is it such a sin? Why is it such an egregious offense for a police officer to post something in opposition to Black Lives Matter? Nobody can really give us an answer other than that it's offensive to the other side. It's offensive to the left.
Yep.
That's the only reason. Now, I've made several posts talking about this very point, about First Amendment protections. The people on the left believe that it's their right to go through their entire lives without being offended by a single person. And that's just not the case. right? The Supreme Court has actually said that almost verbatim in a few of their Supreme Court case decisions. Texas versus Johnson, for example, the Supreme Court case that dealt with the burning of the American flag, right? They they essentially ruled that it's someone's First Amendment right to burn the American flag, despite a large number of people being offended by someone burning the American flag. Now, I don't think that it's okay for someone to burn the American flag. I think the American flag deserves respect. It deserves to be revered as a symbol of freedom and justice and all of the rights and values that we hold dear. But I also value the First Amendment. I think it's probably the most important amendment. That's why it's number one.
Right.
So I respect a person's right, as decided by the Supreme Court, to burn the American flag. The problem is we have this other group of people on the left who believe they have the right to freedom of speech, and you do too, as long as they hear their opinion coming out of your mouth. If it's anything other than that, then they want to label it as hate speech. They want to fabricate this atmosphere of oppression and racism, and label you as the oppressor and themselves as the victims, and then petition for some sort of relief for that oppression and racism when it just simply doesn't exist. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the policy. You sent me a copy of the policy manual, along with some of the decisions, or I guess an outline of the decisions that were made with regard to your disciplinary investigation. Can you see that okay? Is it
Yeah,
too small?
but
Let's see if I can. Can you read that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the section of your policy of the Pacific Grove Police Department's policy regarding speech, expression, and social networking. And under policy, it says public employees occupy a trusted position in the community, and thus their statements have the potential to contravene the policies and performance of this department. Due to the nature of the work and influence associated with the law enforcement profession, it is necessary that employees of this department be subject to certain reasonable limitations on their speech and expression. To achieve its mission and efficiently provide service to the public, the Pacific Grove Police Department will carefully balance the individual employees' rights against the department's needs and interests when exercising a reasonable degree of control over its employees' speech and expression. So, if that policy right there doesn't cause you to raise an eyebrow, it probably should, right?
Oh, it's overbroad. It's overbroad and vague.
Yeah, it's very vague and it's very subjective.
Yes.
Which means it's basically up to the chief of police to decide who gets to say what, and whether or not she agrees with it, and whether or not she will impose discipline on those people with whom she disagrees. Right? So this causes me concern as a police officer and former police officer, and anybody who has aspirations of becoming a police officer in the future, especially at the Pacific Grove Police Department, should take a look at the policy manual and read this first before making your decision. Okay. So then under prohibited speech, expression, and conduct, it says speech or expression that, while not made pursuant to an official duty, which means they want to be able to monitor your speech outside of your official duty. If you're off duty and you say something, you share an opinion, whether it's in front of a group of people, whether it's to one person in particular, whether it's something that you post on Facebook or Instagram, they want to be able to monitor that and decide whether or not it's appropriate. Okay. So again, that's something that should also cause people some concern. So I just wanted to go down here to the considerations. Okay. So in determining this was all applied in your case, is that correct? They used this policy to decide whether or not they were going to impose discipline in your case. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in determining whether to grant authorization of any speech or conduct that is prohibited under this policy, the factors that the chief of police or authorized designee should consider include whether the speech or conduct would negatively affect the efficiency of delivering public services. Okay. Now, I've never known any police officer to have an opinion, right, that he expresses outside of outside of police work, let's just say outside of the realm of law enforcement, that would have any sort of effect on his ability to police the community that he's supposed to police.
Right.
This is something that I went through personally with the Bellevue Marshal's Office. Okay, when I made the LeBron James TikTok, uh, basically the mayor in Bellevue said, "Well, you've sort of violated the public trust. People don't agree with what you had to say. They don't know if they can trust you. They don't know if they can feel safe." And I said, "What is my video that's essentially mocking an NBA superstar? What does that have to do with my ability to police the city of Bellevue?"
Right. Absolutely.
Politics and police work don't mix. Okay. Now, just because in my downtime or in my off duty time, I have the urge or feel the need to express myself, whether it's on a political level or not, has no bearing on my ability or willingness to serve my community as a law enforcement official. But this is what they're this is that's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that your speech and your thought and the way you express yourself is supposed to translate directly into your performance as a police officer. And it just doesn't. That's just not the case. It isn't. I mean, how many, you know, you yourself, Michael, are a perfect example. Okay. You posted something, a couple of things in opposition of Black Lives Matter, yet you saved two African American kayakers from drowning. It doesn't, those two don't really seem to conflate, in my opinion.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. And I laugh about all this because it's yeah, you eroded the public's trust, but yet you have a very small percentage portion of people that don't like my stickers that are gonna follow the councilwoman, but then yet that rally you were talking about earlier, that was actually a rally in support of me in front of the Pacific Grove Police Department. So
Oh,
there's a large backing of individuals, who are in support of me, and the city had, just fails to look at, the support for me, but rather, look at that very small, minute number of people that, are complaining just because of that political pull that the councilwoman is using in her official capacity to basically bring this to light on the left side. Oh, look how horrible this cop is. Oh, he can't be on our streets. He's an extremist. He's a, oh my gosh, he has a Parler account. He's an anti-government.
yep. Well, that's exactly what they do with the opposition. They come up with these radical, ideological or ideology based policies that don't make any sense, right? They're counterintuitive, they're counterproductive, and you're not supposed to ask questions about them. You're just supposed to fall in line. And when you do ask questions, even if it's just questions, not even if I mean, not even criticism, but if you are the type to ask questions because it doesn't make sense, and you ask for a little bit of proof to verify, you're labeled as a racist, you're labeled as a bigot, you're labeled as an oppressor. They try to destroy your reputation because they know that you're not going to just fall in line. So they have to figure out a way to cancel you. And that's the way they do it, is by destroying your credibility
Yeah,
in any way they possibly can.
and the funny thing about this, after, during the course of this, the councilwoman, started a equal diversity, collaboration, new policy for the city. Oh, we need more diversity, but yet you are targeting a Hispanic male with conservative views.
Yeah.
How more diverse? I mean, the city of Pacific Grove is only about 16,000 people, and roughly 95% Caucasian. I mean, if not, probably a higher number percentage of Caucasian. But yet you are eliminating. The police department is the most diverse segment of the city.
Yeah.
It is, and yet you are targeting Hispanic male, and yet now you're crying here on the other side, saying that we need more diversity, more equal opportunities for people of color.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it just speaks to the fact that this isn't about protecting people of color and fighting for equal rights and social justice. This is about just pushing an agenda. Because
Exactly.
I mean, you can see what's going on with Larry Elder right now, and the potential recall of Governor Newsom. And if that happens, it seems as though Larry Elder is the one who's likely to take his place. And now Larry Elder is being labeled as the black face of white supremacy. So I mean, it nothing makes any sense on the left anymore. It's just push the narrative, protect the agenda at all costs, right? Pretend to be compassionate and empathetic or sympathetic to the cause and plight of people of color. But if a person of color doesn't agree, then we're going to destroy their credibility and their reputation along with every other conservative that stands in our way. So it has nothing to do with actually caring about the black community or the Hispanic community or any other community that might be marginalized. It has everything to do with staying in power and getting the votes. And if you're not going to help them get votes, even if you are a person of color, then they are going to cancel you or at least attempt to cancel you.
Absolutely, that is absolutely true. When this push for my termination, a lot of people, found out that I was a Hispanic male. A lot of them kind of like, those good number of people kind of backed off, but then you had those who, no, we're going to stand behind this councilwoman. Even though he's a person of color, white supremacy lives inside of him, and I'm like, let me rally up with with the guys, and it's ridiculous. It's almost laughable, and the fact that they, like I talked earlier, my father passed away. A father figure of mine stepped into place, who's an African American male from Compton, Compton, California. I lived with him, I worked with him. He's an educated, man of color, and I call him dad to this day. And
Yeah.
These people, it's almost like it's really mind blowing, Nate, at how much of the facts these people just don't want to really understand, or they just don't care. They're just on that narrative. He's a Trump supporter. He's a conservative. Let's get him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And facts don't really factor into the woke logic, if you want to call it logic, because it's the antithesis of logic. But yeah, facts, they don't want to hear you talk about facts. And if you try to present facts in support of your own argument, then again, you're labeled a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, an oppressor, whatever they can try and label you, with these infantile insults. That's the only, which is funny. That seems to be their only argument or lack of an argument. When they're presented with facts and logic and reasoning, they resort to juvenile and infantile insults, to try and essentially just end the conversation or end the debate or the argument and move on, because they know that they've lost you, right? They can't convert you, they can't brainwash you, so they're going to sling mud and hope that something sticks.
Yeah,
Right?
during my grievance process, with the city manager, which is my final administrative process, I presented true hard facts. I presented actual members of the community of Pacific Grove to speak on my behalf that my termination is unlawful and it's wrong. I had members of the police department, testify on my behalf. I had, there was somebody had started a petition, for support of me, for the city of Pacific Grove to basically keep my job. I presented all these facts. I presented,
Mm-hmm.
Statements, but yet the city was unable to present any factual evidence that my speech actually eroded or disrupted the function of the police department. This so-called, social justice warrior, Jenny McAdams, didn't even come. She didn't give a test. She didn't give, testifying as to, you know, you know, to anything. But yet she stood her ground, being a keyboard warrior that, oh my God, I was a racist bigot. But yet when it came to grieving the process, the city absolutely, did not present anything. Absolutely nothing.
So she doesn't have a problem going behind your back and complaining to your superiors about you. And, and who knows what was said behind closed doors, in meetings with her and your chief, your former chief. But when it comes to, like you say, presenting facts and evidence in support of her argument and her reasoning for, why these things make you unsuitable or unfit to be a police officer, she's a no-show. Um, So down here in these findings of facts portion of your notice of intent to discipline. So these are the main points that they considered when determining whether or not they were going to discipline you. The first one is whether Officer Gonzalez has or had a Parler account. Okay, and obviously you did, and that you never disputed that. Number two is whether Officer Gonzalez posted or reposted on Parler a message stating "fuck Black Lives Matter," which you also didn't dispute, right? Because again, you were you were targeting the organization, right, and not actual Black lives, right?
Absolutely. I got tired of seeing our cities burn. I got tired of seeing cops get hurt. I'm tired of this defund movement. Um, People truly don't understand, and these past couple of days and weeks has, been truly tragic and been really hard for the law enforcement family.
Yeah.
Several law enforcement officers have lost their lives, in the line of duty this past couple of weeks. A couple of weeks ago, I lost a buddy who I attended the academy with. From my last department, I worked for the Kern County Sheriff's Department prior to going to Pacific Grove, and he lost his line in the line of duty a couple of weeks ago. Doing it during a SWAT operation, and these people truly do not know what it is to walk an hour in a cop's shoes.
Yeah. No, they don't. But they want to pretend they do, and they have no problem being, sitting in that armchair Monday morning, quarterbacking all of the things that police officers had to do during the weekend, saving lives, suppressing violent crime, and literally staring death in the face, and all the horrific types of calls that police officers have to respond to. But yeah, you're right. Police, or the majority of the general public, their their I guess their sense of what police work actually is not grounded in any type of reality. Because the people who do have a sense of that reality, you never see them criticizing the cops, and you definitely never see them complaining on the cops, and you certainly don't see them trying to destroy the reputation of police officers and call for their jobs and demand that they be terminated because you don't agree with a bumper sticker that they have on their pickup. The third point here in these considerations is whether Officer Gonzalez posted or reposted on Parler a message stating, quote unquote, "free Kyle Rittenhouse." Now, what's funny about all of this is none of this stuff, first of all, none of this stuff constitutes a crime, but every single one of these, you have a right to say these things per the First Amendment. And none of these things, this fuck Black Lives Matter or free Kyle Rittenhouse, that has nothing to do with your ability to effectively do police work.
Absolutely.
Nothing at all.
And then also, like I said, I've been fighting this since January, and actually since the very first beginning internal investigations, which started in it's been almost more than 3/4 of a way in the a year dealing with this stuff. But not also that, but within that policy somewhere, the police department, I should have known better as well and done a little bit more research. But the city, I was not, I did not have to release or basically confirm, the Parler account username. The city actually violated, or the chief of police actually violated that policy by actually requesting that I release and actually say that was my user account name, because it was only a personnel matter. It wasn't a criminal complaint. To actually look up information on the Parler account. So she unlawfully asked me and had me basically release and say, yes, that's my Parler account name.
Did you ever have a private conversation with your chief?
She called me the day of actually finding out about those postings, which was November 28th of last year.
And you went and sat down and had like a face-to-face with her?
Oh no, I was at home, enjoying my time, sitting outside. I remember it like it's yesterday, sitting outside in my garage, watching my kids ride their bikes in the driveway. And she basically said, she said, "Why did you post this? Why did you post fuck Black Lives Matter? You know that people are already upset over your stickers. why did you do that? When did you post it? What's your username? You know, she kind of got me kind of, offset in that heat of the moment type thing. And I was like, well, this is why I posted it. I told her I don't stand for defunding police. Look at the destruction that's happened over our country the past couple of months, and I stand for all lives matter. And then when it came to, I mean, I remember, like I said, I remember like it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to the grievance process with the city manager, my attorney asked her if she remembered what I told her during that phone conversation, and she blatantly lied. Because I remember it like it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And she blatantly, she had to take that pause, and go, think of her answers. Oh, no, I don't remember. A blatant lie.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, it seems like I don't know if there's any agency or jurisdiction or county or city anywhere in California that isn't overrun by liberal radical wokeism. And you would think that a chief of all people, right, a chief of a law enforcement agency would understand how important or how significant it is when an organization like Black Lives Matter is calling for the defunding of police departments, and that it's equally
or chanting in the streets, pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon.
Yeah.
You know,
and then to suppress and try and control and limit the free speech rights of your employees, especially when they're speaking out in opposition of Black Lives Matter and their anti-police sentiments. Because who is more qualified to actually present valid arguments in a response to people who believe that police officers and the police profession should be defunded? Who is more qualified than a police officer to do that? Especially a rank and file guy, like you and I, when we were, out there patrolling or investigating or, whatever our function was. If there's anybody who understands the importance of police work, it's the police officers themselves, and then the victims, legitimate victims, who have been terrorized by criminals who have been coddled by our politicians lately and our elected officials. Those are the people that understand how important and significant police work is, and the people who are most qualified to present an argument to people who don't understand the reality of police work and who are calling for the defunding of police.
absolutely.
But those are the people that they're trying to silence on a daily basis. So did you ever have any conversations with any of the city officials, the city manager, any other city council members, or the mayor? Or...
No, everything was basically done through my union attorney.
Okay.
We went to every meeting, submitted every paperwork together.
Okay. Well, I've been so scrolling down at the bottom of the screen was the Chief Kathy. Is it Madalone? Is that
Yes,
how you
sir.
pronounce her? So her phone number and email address was just scrolling across the bottom. Now you see the city manager, Ben Harvey, his information, his contact information. This is all public. These are all public points of contact. They're on their city website. So this isn't doxing. I'm not trying to troll these people. But for those of you watching and listening, if you have an issue that you would, or a concern or a complaint, or you want to call in support of Michael, you have the information, the contact information to be able to do that. And I think that it would make a huge difference. Even though Michael doesn't have his job with them anymore, I think it's important for these types of administrators and city officials to understand that what they're doing is wrong, that not everybody agrees with the type of woke radical policies that people like City Councilwoman Jenny McAdams are trying to implement, and her efforts to cancel and silence anybody who disagrees with her, especially when it's a police officer who has a young family he's trying to support and is trying to stand up for what he believes is right. And I think you have more people on your side than you probably know, Michael. I'm sure you've experienced that a little bit with some of the outreach that you've seen. At least I hope you have. Now you have a GoFundMe set up, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about what that? I mean, I understand that you're in the middle of a lawsuit. Is that right? Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. So you're in the middle of a lawsuit. You're suing the Pacific Grove Police Department and the city of Pacific Grove, or?
Yes, sir. The whole city and the department as an entity.
Okay. Now, legal fees can be pretty expensive. I mean, I know that most of you probably know that, but for those of you who don't, believe me, the costs of that can be astronomical. So Michael has a GoFundMe set up. What's the goal in the GoFundMe right now?
Right now, I believe it's $38,000. I've reached 7,700 of that. Um, so I've actually paid $10,000 of my own money toward this. Fund savings that I had put away for my family, to fight this. But
Yeah,
I have true faith, and and I know 100% that this is 100% wrong, and I'm going to stand my ground. And, unfortunately, I got to fight this battle, and it's hard. I mean, this is probably one
yeah,
of the hardest endeavors that, um, myself and my wife, have really had to deal with. My kids are little, 3, 5, and 7. They really don't know much of what's going on, but yet all they really know is that I'm not a cop anymore. And they ask me all the time, and I can just tell them, well, dad's doing something else, dad's taking a break,
yeah.
but I mean, just the that glow in their eyes when they see their dad, walking in uniform, and
Hmm.
just it's something that just it's unexplainable to know that, man, the way my kids look at me while I'm in uniform, they you can just see that, like, my dad's like a superhero.
Yeah,
you know it's
yeah. No, that's a special. It's a special feeling, and uh, I felt that too with my own daughter when I was when I was on patrol and she was a younger kid. She had that sort of that proud glow in her eye.
Mhm.
When I'd come home in my uniform or when I would go to her school and eat lunch with her. Those are the moments that sort of are intrinsically meaningful to a police officer, even though they don't necessarily have anything to do with actual police work. But being a police officer is something to be proud of. It's a noble profession, and your family members are proud of you, and it's something that you should be proud of yourself, especially when it comes to life-saving incidents like you have been a part of, and when your coworkers recognize, your contribution to the mission, right? To protecting your community, and the pulling your own weight amongst your coworkers, which is obvious since you were awarded Officer of the Year at one point. So I think that is really awesome. Um, so the link to Michael's GoFundMe is going to be in the description section. So click on that. $38,000 really isn't all that much in the grand scheme of things when you think about, Michael lost his job, he lost his pension, he lost his benefits, and now he has legal fees that are piling up. So he needs some financial support. So let's rally around him. Let's rally behind him and see if we can help him out. I'm going to make a donation. I'm not expecting anybody to make a huge donation, but a couple dollars here, $5 there, that stuff adds up very quickly. So
Absolutely.
click on go to the GoFundMe, donate, share it, spread it around. It's the sharing that's very important, right? Don't just make a donation, and then share. And because I'd like to see you be successful in this lawsuit, not just so you can recover, monetary damages. I mean, I hope you do. I really hope you do. But the other thing I'm really hoping for is to see some sort of change in policies that are similar to the one being implemented at Pacific Grove Police Department, and a change in the way administrators deal with their employees, in this sort of spineless cowardice that you see from these administrators when it comes to fielding complaints from the woke, who believe that it's their right not to be offended by people like you and me, and that when they are offended, then that means that person should lose their job, they should lose their house, they should lose their livelihood, and anything else that makes them who they are. And to cancel that person out of existence it's vile, it's disgusting, it's cowardly, and we need police administrators to stand up to that type of nonsense. So that's what I would like to see come out of this. So I really hope you're successful in your lawsuit.
Yeah, thank you, Officer. And I sent you the notice of intent to discipline from the chief of police, and um, you know, I'm pretty sure you've read it, and you can get basically a clear baseline that it's all personal perspective on everything that she
Mhm.
writes in there. Basically, it's her perspective as to, oh, I believe. You can't believe. You have to actually have facts. You can't just say, "Oh, I believe his post may erode the public's trust." we don't,
Yeah.
we don't do cop work off of speculation or belief, right? Oh, I believe that car has drugs. Let me pull it over. No, absolutely
Yeah.
not. You know, there's
Yeah.
there's
Yep.
there's
Well, why?
letters.
And if you're going to deal with eh, personnel matters in such a way, why bother writing an entire policy manual if it's just based on your subjective beliefs, or your intuition, or your instinct? There has to be. I understand that employee personnel matters are dealt with a little differently than criminal matters, but there still has to be some sort of objective standard that is applied when dealing with employee discipline,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. This chief did not follow policy whatsoever. She right away went to the media, did a statement release, and actually released information relating to the internal investigations, which she in a way kind of built that fire of this wokeness of oh, let's push. I mean, honestly, God, I believe it was her push to get me out, just because she does not believe with me politically as well.
Yeah.
So and as you know, in a personnel matter, it's dealt with in house. You don't do a press release. You don't release information. You don't contact, the newspaper to give a statement to. You just don't do that in a
Right.
personnel matter. Um, uh, um,
So she was looking for affirmation from the general public in dealing with your particular incident or your particular investigation, because it seems to me, and what I've read and what you've told me, uh, there was no actual policy violation other than her subjective analysis of it.
Absolutely.
Um, and of course, when it's subjective, she's going to bring all of her personal biases into the equation, and that's not how these things should be dealt with, especially not in a government setting, right? Not with a government employer and a government employee. Like I said, there should be some sort of objective standard that is applied across the board to all employees, and not implementing this vague language from a policy, where there's no specifics, there's no details. It basically says, well, we have this general policy, and I'm going to subjectively evaluate this particular incident, and if I agree with what the police officer did, then he'll get to stay, and if I disagree, then he's out. And that's
you
just
know
wrong.
it's totally wrong. And what's crazy within our policy as well, I'm allowed as a private citizen to oppose, support, or contradict any political or social movement, which that's what I did.
Hmm.
Yet the policy allows it, but yet I was still terminated based off of, like you said, a personal bias, just because I didn't fit that agenda.
Yeah, yeah, because you dared speak out and express your own political perspective, which, as we've seen, it's okay as long as you're on the right side of it, right? As long as you're, or on the left side of it, I should say. If you're, if you're woke enough and you're on the left and you support all of the ideological principles that they're trying to push, then you'll be just fine. I have no doubt that if you would have posted Black Lives Matter, uh, just that you would have been absolutely fine. That no one would have complained, because see, here's the thing, and I mentioned this in a video that I did recently. My political beliefs and I guess my general beliefs, about the way I live my life and how certain principles that I abide by, my beliefs still give you a choice, right? If we don't agree politically, my beliefs still give you a choice whether or not you can agree with me, whether or not you can be offended by me, right? Because that's completely your choice. If you're
Right.
offended by what I say, that's totally on you. But the beliefs on the other side would take that choice away from me, whether or not I choose to agree or disagree, or be offended or not be offended. That is all taken away according to how they want things to operate. They
Absolutely.
want that choice to be taken away from you to compel conformity and compliance, with their beliefs and their policies. So,
Yeah,
and that's completely immoral and corrupt. That's
absolutely.
not that's not how we do things in the United States of America. But we're seeing that becoming more and more prevalent, and we need people like you, Michael, who continue to speak out, even in the face of, or the prospect of losing your job. Um, I mean, I'm sorry that that happened. It is very unfortunate, but I think you've probably discovered that it's worth maintaining your integrity and abiding by your own principles and morals, and sacrificing your job instead of compromising your integrity.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
people can find you on, let's see, Facebook at Fund Gonzalez, and also Twitter at Fund Gonzalez. And if they don't click on the link in the description on this video, they can certainly go to your Facebook or Twitter account and find it there as well. And they can probably read a little bit more information about your particular incident specifically. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, Michael, best of luck with the lawsuit. Best of luck with everything else. I appreciate you coming on and talking to me today. And let me know if you need anything. But I'm going to try and get this GoFundMe shared around and see if we can't get people to donate and get that goal hiked up there a little bit higher for you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on today. I really enjoyed speaking with you, man.